financial markets worldwide are in turmoil, with stocks plummeting in reaction to the tariffs announced by President Donald Trump. Some have suggested it's the end of globalization as we know it, and many people are concerned by what is, of course, going on. Over the weekend, we saw thousands of people protesting in European cities and in the United States against the Trump administration's policies, both the tariffs and other parts of his agenda. Well, despite the trouble on the financial markets and growing concern about the impact of the tariffs, President Trump seemed unfazed when he spoke to reporters on Air Force One on Sunday night.
I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. I spoke to a lot of leaders, European, Asian, from all over the world. They're dying to make a deal. But I said, we're not going to have deficits with your country. We're not going to do that, because to me a deficit is a loss. We're going to have surpluses, or we're at worst going to be breaking even.
Well, by Trump saying there that you've got to take the medicine first implies a slightly bad taste, a bit of discomfort at first, but this is in fact so huge. It's a foul taste, isn't it? But the medicine is taking immediate effect. I mean, the repercussions, everything is so monumental. That's right, isn't it, Robert?
I mean, for sure, this is a major reset. You know, we haven't seen this for decades. It almost certainly triggers, a global trade war. It creates a degree of business uncertainty around the world that is kind of unprecedented since the Second World War. So, we're in a time of extraordinary transition. But, as those clips from Donald Trump sort of underline, I mean, the point that we're hearing here in Washington is there are no second thoughts from this president. He's not surrounded by advisors who are telling him, to rethink or to recalibrate. He's doubling down. He's called tariffs a beautiful thing to behold in the last 24 hours. He's told Americans, be strong, be patient, be courageous. Greatness will be the result. So I think the important thing to understand from sort of inside the beltway here is this is Donald Trump doing exactly what he wants to do, and indeed what he promised on the campaign trail.
I mean, Robert, I think he even posted on Friday, my policies will never change, only the weak will fail. And that, I think, is what surprised me most at the late end of last week, because we have seen, tariffs have been talked about not so long ago, a couple of weeks ago, when we started with Canada and with China. And then there was a bit of flip-flopping, a little bit going back. But this time, it feels that he absolutely is hell-bent on pursuing this strategy, the belief that ultimately, long-term, it will be good for America. Now, Matthew, there doesn't seem to be much sign of an off-ramp for the US, does there, with this? There definitely is all go for this.
That certainly seems to be the case. And it might be even more confusing than that. You have conflicting communications. Is this about, reciprocal trade, fair trade, or is this about rebuilding the American middle class? Is this about deficit reduction? Is this about, the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, is saying this could replace the U.S. income tax? This is more than a realignment. This seems to be a much more of a reordering of the American economy, even the global economy. This morning, you are seeing, prominent Trump supporters. Elon Musk is out there contradicting the administration, now saying, the benefits of free trade. And then you saw Wall Street investor Bill Ackman, who's been, again, a prominent supporter of Donald Trump, saying, please, pump the brakes. Let's rethink this. You can go out there and make an argument that, let's cut some deals on behalf of the American public. So again, it seems as if the administration is certainly hell-bent on imposing these tariffs.
I mean, Matthew, what I am really interested in knowing about is, what do Americans think of this strategy? Are they behind him? Or do they think this is a huge mistake?
Yeah, it is mixed at best. The elites in America, those that are in finance and business, seem to be more than hesitant, deeply troubled, deeply concerned with this new policy and how the ramifications and repercussions could go from Wall Street to Main Street. Yet there is also, people that support this. Populism is popular. And the notion of the hollowed out middle class, the notion that America has been somehow ripped off and we're going to do this, and maybe Wall Street will be punished, but Main Street will benefit. Those in the middle class, whether it's jobs, whether it's wealth redistribution, will benefit, has some people that are open to this. And you go back to the Occupy Wall Street movement. You go back to, again, Trump's multiple presidential campaigns where he is trying to put a focus on the American worker. That sentiment may prevail, but the policy itself may ultimately not work.
I mean, that's talking directly about America. Robert, do you think that Trump and his team care about the effect on the rest of the world?
Well, Lucy, let me sort of pick up on Matthew's point first. I mean, and your question about what the American people think. I mean, that's a question that kind of made sense perhaps in the 60s and 70s when there was kind of a consensus. What do the Americans think? They're all around the same sort of broadcast ecosystem. They're listening to the same news. That question doesn't really apply to 2025 America. There are two Americas. There's the sort of MAGA tribe who do believe in tariffs and do profoundly believe that Trump is acting in their interests. I mean, I know that better than most because I've just come back from talking to shrimp fishermen down in Louisiana for a documentary that ITV is doing. And there, that's a business, an industry that absolutely loves Donald Trump and completely embraces the concept of tariffs. So there, in kind of working class fishing communities, you'll find extraordinary depths of loyalty to Donald Trump and his agenda. Even now, even as the stock market is in turmoil, they think this is hitting the elites and benefiting the working class of America. So, there is this polarization we often talk about, and that's absolutely in play in terms of American opinion. And I think in the global view, I mean, I don't think this White House cares greatly about that, to be frank. They regard, and you've heard this in Trump's rhetoric, they feel that America has been ripped off by the world for decades now, and they see this as kind of necessary recalibration, realignment of the entire kind of global trade system that they so often rail at.
I mean, but the market bloodbath, and I mean, I'll have to ask you this, Robert. Do you think some people have been calling it Trump's Liz Truss moment, reflecting back on her mini budget in 2022. What do you think? Is this Trump's equivalent?
No, because he's just come off the back of a major election victory. I mean, Liz Truss never had this. Donald Trump didn't just win the Electoral College just a few months ago. He won the popular vote. So he has got more energy, more kind of political support than is commonly understood here. And he has, he still feels that he's on the right side of the argument. You can call this hubris, you can call this kind of the narcissism of Donald Trump, but he profoundly believes it. This time he's surrounded himself by loyalists in a way he didn't in his first Trump term. So I'm not sure he's hearing the kind of, at least not as the last voice in the room, the kind of pro-free trade argument.
I think it's definitely fair to say that most financial experts think that the economic rationale behind all this is suspect. I mean, I spoke to a friend of mine who's a partner at Goldman Sachs yesterday, and he said to me that they are playing high stakes Russian roulette, but he didn't rule out totally that it might work. There is a chance. Of course, there must be a chance. So can you see the method to this madness, Robert?
Look, you only have to visit, I don't know, Gary, Indiana or Lansing in Michigan to understand that fundamentally, some of the sort of industrial cities of America are facing kind of epic challenges and have been the victims of globalization. And that's just a reality. Nobody who walks around some of these former automotive cities in the Midwest can feel anything other than a deep sense of sadness at how they have fallen on hard times. And of course, Donald Trump played on that relentlessly during the campaign trail. So, you can see the argument that underpins Donald Trump's policy on tariffs. But as you say, there's a near consensus from, economists and those who follow, finances and those who rely on business, consistency. All of those, are highly skeptical this can work. And I think, there is no question that we're now in a moment of extraordinary economic peril. And I think the point is, it's not just the tariff war. It's also, we've got war in the heart of Europe. We've got war in the heart of the Middle East. There's concern about China acting on Taiwan in the next couple of years. So it builds this kind of crescendo, this tsunami of uncertainty that I think is a grave peril, both to the United States, but also to the whole concept of free trade and globalization.
I mean, that is exactly what my friend at Goldman said to me. He said, everyone is just guessing right now what will happen next. But one thing is for certain is the world as we know it just changed. Matthew, as someone who knows Trump inside that White House the first time around, how bad do you think things would have to get for Trump to even think about changing tack? Would he?
Unclear. Donald Trump has been, one of the most inconsistent politicians we have ever seen. Happy to contradict himself, and there's some energy to that. Could he come out later on today and say, I'm going to postpone these tariffs? I'm going to make deals. Anything is possible. But I would say one of the only consistent things Donald Trump has believed in since the 80s, since the time of Ronald Reagan, is tariffs. So it seems as if he believes we need to do something of a biblical economic policy. We are going to have a massive flood. There will be some destruction, some damage, but afterwards there will be a dove and a rainbow, and we'll be in this economic Shangri-La, and we'll have domestic manufacturing. The middle class will prosper. Listen, all of this is possible, but still very unlikely. Here in America, if you create a better product at a cheaper price, you win the day. I am still unsure what we get, for higher prices that somehow lead to greater prosperity. So it's very, very frothy. There is some deference, as Robert just said, to him from the populist base, from the working class, and now minority base from his last win. But again, we'll see how this policy truly plays out.
What's the general feeling amongst his own party? What do the Republicans think about what's happening? I mean, Ted Cruz expressed concern on his own podcast, I think it was yesterday, that they could face a bloodbath in the upcoming midterms if the tariffs cause a recession. And if JP Morgan and their predictions are anything to go by, they say it's 60% chance of a recession. What is the general feeling among Republicans, Robert?
So look, I mean, in the old Republican Party, there would have been deep skepticism about this sort of triggering of a trade war. But, as we've commented on this podcast and in our programs as well, this is Donald Trump's Republican Party and he owns it. There is extraordinary depth of loyalty to him. And those who have opposed his policies on tariffs or on other issues have been run out of town. And so I think they'll stay loyal to him until, we get close to the midterms, and then they're worrying about their own political skins. But for now, I judge he can rely on the broad loyalty of the party, even though there are going to be some like Ted Cruz expressing concern about the electoral impact in a couple of years.